welcome you into the Hometown Sports Huddle on this Monday afternoon. Hi, everybody. Dave Walls here, back with you for another week here at WDBJ 7 Plus. Austin Hicks and Mitch Carr are on assignment. Of course, they'll be back later in the week. All right, big news today, of course, is, we got two things to talk about. We got NASCAR and we got baseball. I'm going to start with baseball, and then we'll talk about our recaps of the weekend and mourning Kyle Busch, the loss that we had with that. I know we talked a little bit about that last week, but after the racing weekend that we had, I think it's worth talking about again. First, let's talk about baseball. We got all three of our area D1 teams in. We got Virginia Tech, of course. They are in. They will play out in Los Angeles, so they'll play Cal Poly on Friday night. Liberty is also in. They got Boston College, and then also UVA will take on Jacksonville State. So you got both the Conference USA champs and the runners-up who will play as well. We'll talk more about those matchups later. In fact, we'll be talking with Liberty head coach Bradley LaCroix and some of his players out in Lynchburg tomorrow. We'll have that for you here on the Huddle tomorrow. But today is about Virginia Tech and Coach John Sheff and his team. And let's be honest, 30-24 on paper, this is a team that was really straddling that line as one of the last four out in. But, they won the last four series of the season, also made some noise in the ACC tournament. Even in their loss, they against UNC, they really did a bang-up job, put a lot of runs on the table. And this is also a pitching staff that has shown at times that they've got what it takes to get the job done. Now, earlier today, Coach John Sheff joined media members like myself on Zoom today for a conversation, and this is the raw interview. So again, you're going to see some cuts. You're going to hear some of the other reporters, but I thought it was important to share with you guys, just the thoughts of this Virginia Tech team as we go into the NCAA tournament, about this team that now has to travel 3,000 miles out to the West Coast, and whether or not he feels like they're playing their best ball of the season right now. Some interesting answers. Here's Coach John Sheff talking about his Virginia Tech Hokies baseball team.
I initially thought we would have been a 3. It didn't happen that way. So, honestly, the only difference, Mark, is it's home and away, as you know. So, one, we watched the show. Two, some guys look like, I think it was a combination of excitement and maybe a little bit of surprise, only because, we're obviously on the East Coast, and typically a lot of teams aren't sent all the way across the country, whether they're coming from west to east or east to west. But yeah, that was really all.
First time in 4 years, you're going to the NCAAs. What does getting back there mean to you in the program?
Well, I think it's just a really good accomplishment. I'm happy for our players that they get the opportunity. Really thankful to our coaching staff. Those guys have done a tremendous job this year, preparing guys for all the different challenges. I give an awful lot of credit to our trainer, Kyle Staggers, for keeping guys healthy and on the field. Guys like him and Andrew Stone, our strength coach, those guys don't get half as much credit as they deserve as far as keeping guys healthy and strong and on the field, which is something we really have not had over the last 3 years. And it's not because of those two guys. It's just we just had some bad luck as far as injuries go. But I've always felt like if you can keep your best players on the field and available, you'll have a pretty good opportunity to advance and be overly competitive in this league that we're in. I mean, I think it's big for the program. I mean, it's big any year that you go to the NCAA tournament. I think you got to realize in this day and age where rosters are different year to year as far as freshmen and transfers, the teams are you have a lot of new players from year to year, and if those guys can stay healthy and like in our case, I think it took our guys a little bit of time to get used to the level, the speed of the game, the hitters, the arms are facing for pitchers, the hitters are facing. It just took a little bit of time because our schedule was so demanding and we played an awful lot on the road early. But I give our guys a lot of credit down the stretch. They're very consistent for the most part and put themselves in a position that we're sitting here talking about this today. I don't know. I mean, I think our teams have been pretty talented over the last 4 years. I mean, I will tell you the difference I really believe is the fact that this team has stayed healthy. We knock on wood, we have not had, colossal season-ending injuries, which we've had over the last. We had 17 major injuries over the last 3 years. I would like to think that if that didn't happen and we kept some of those guys on the field, that maybe the result might have been different. But I think the fact that this team was, one, good enough, and two, healthy enough and available, I think it helped them/us to finish the way that this team finished. I think there's a big benefit. I really do. The fact that our guys have been through that, as far as the length of the flight, the time change. I will say this, having been to both San Francisco and LA, the weather in LA is probably a little bit better, a little warmer than the cooler weather up in the northern part of California. So I think that we'll step into better weather. We'll also step into, some pretty stiff competition from the teams in that regional, obviously. But, you're never going to go to there's no such thing as going to an easy regional. Those don't exist. So we'll have our hands full with Cal Poly on Friday, but I think they'll have their hands full with us too. I know our guys got together and met. It was like a Monday after the Stanford series and kind of hammered some things out amongst themselves. I think that had a little bit to do with it. The energy was probably was better after that, and that had nothing to do with the coaches. But I've always felt like the team's been good enough, like to win games at this. We've won 16 games against ACC opponents, so I don't think it's been a question of not being good enough. I think, we had some things go our way in the second half of the season, and guys stayed healthy and on the field. And I will also say this: if you go back to the Sundays at Georgia Tech, at UVA, at Miami, where these guys battled through and salvaged series, and then were led in the mound by Griffin Stig. Man, I tell you, those were pretty important Sundays that sometimes people might not remember them because they were played in the first half of the year. But without those Sundays, I don't know that we're sitting here having this conversation. I think we're playing good baseball. Is it our best? I can't say. I don't think it is. I think we still got some more in the tank. Only because I think our guys have played good, solid baseball. Have they played great, solid baseball? I think they can still play. I think we can still perform better than what we've played, actually. I don't think we've really put like 3 days together in a row in the ACC. We've won, I think, 5 down the stretch, 5 series, but we've kind of been a little bit. I don't think we've been as strong for 3 straight days. A combination on the mound, position player wise, whatever you want to say. But I don't think we've been as strong over the course of 3 days as we can be in probably all facets of the game. That's where I think that we can. That's where I think we haven't played our best baseball. Like if we're out there, winning 3 games on weekends and sweeping people, maybe I'd say we are. But I don't think we are. I think we're playing good, very good. I just don't think we're playing as you would say, our best baseball.
Who are you talking to?
2 more. We'll go back to Dylan, please.
Coach, Whit Babcock recently told reporters that you had 16 scholarships to use this year. Obviously, a lot of the ACC, especially the other ones, to make the tournament are well above that. What goes into getting to this point, the success you guys have had, just kind of playing from behind a lot of your conference?
Yeah. Mike Rooney, Kyle Peterson are here once again. What a season it has been.
Well,
Rooney,
I think you have to.
Yeah, a season of individual superstar performances, and what's beautiful is so many of them are in this tournament.
As far as
yeah, I would agree. Rock Chalowski got really famous last year. I would
putting
assume
the team
we're going
together
to see Rock again, and Daniel Jackson,
over the summer
at least
months,
at this point, leads every Triple Crown category in the SEC. I would assume that we're going to see him as well. We got superstars all over
the place. The month of June and July.
Of college
the last 2
baseball,
years,
and the second season
you're not going to the beach and drinking cold drinks. You know what I'm saying? Like those 2 months are.
This tournament
those are working.
16 regionals comprised
those 2 months are
of
as hard as any months.
This coming weekend, then we'll be down
in
to
the
8
calendar
super
year
regionals where 2 teams square
for
up
us
in
as far as
best of
roster
3
management
series. The
goes
winners
and
of
putting the
Supers
best
head to
product
the College
together that
World
we
Series.
can on
Remember,
paper.
top 8 seeds will
now
also
that's on
host the
paper. You don't
Supers
win games on
if
paper.
they win their
But
regionals,
I think you have
and
to
of
win the
course,
game
if
on
their
paper
field
before you
is
can win a
available.
game in
Let's
person.
start unveiling
And that's where we try to take
and we
what we
start
have,
with the number 1 overall seed, and no
get the
surprise,
right guys in place, at least what we think we do. You're not always going to be right.
And tournament champs,
and
led by Rock Chalowski, Big Ten Player of the Year. They're the number 1 national seed.
Instruct and coach guys as best we can.
Time, and the
really,
first time since 2019.
You're not always going to hit it right, but you try to hit it right as much as you can.
The champions out of the West Coast Conference.
After the AC tournament, you took the chance to kind of shout out your players, but what does it mean for you, Kurt, Tyler Hansen, to kind of be back here, for the second time since you guys got to Tech?
Larry Lee in his 24th
well, I think it's
league's hit leader Alejandro Garza.
It gives you a good feeling of accomplishment beyond whatever you're getting paid or whatever anybody's getting paid. Like there's a lot of accomplishment feeling from a coaching perspective before you actually play the regional games. There's only 33 at-large berths, and there's 308 teams in college baseball. So like there's a lot of competition going on, man, for those berths, obviously. And I think it's gotten more and more difficult to grab one of those bursts. There's a lot that's got to go your way. But ultimately, it comes down to how good the players are that you have, how well they play, and how well your coaching staff prepares them. That's really what it comes down to. I do think the fact that usually teams that play in leagues that are in those Power 4 leagues, sometimes they have they might get a little more benefit of the doubt. But I coached the Mariners for 7 years. And, I understand the level. The levels are different, and I'm not knocking the guys. The Mariners are some of the most favorite guys I ever coached in my life.
Moving on down
in
the Atlanta
when you're going through this 30-game ACC season,
the Bulldogs won the SoCon.
You got your hands full all the time. And it's not just with how well your guys play, but it's how healthy they stay. And, what do you have access to bullpen-wise on a given day? There's just a lot that goes into it. So playing baseball in the ACC, it sounds great, and it is great. However, there's an awful lot of challenges to playing in a league like this that maybe other people maybe don't see or understand.
Yeah, the star power.
Take one more from Mark.
Drew Burris, Vaughn Lackey,
John, are you expecting Renfroe to pitch in the regional?
I am. Yeah, I think I'm expecting that. Yes.
That was wrong.
I got to go back and talk to the coaching staff as far as how we're going to set this whole thing up. But yeah, we think he's going to be fine to pitch in that. Yep, that's been the plan all along.
And with UCLA being the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, did you wince at all when you saw up on the screen that you guys were in the UCLA's regional, or you didn't care?
I mean, they're obviously really good. I mean, John Savage does a really good job with those guys. I saw that firsthand. They were in that same tournament with us in Texas when we were out there in early March. And then if I go back 11 years ago when I took that Maryland team out there to play them, and they're the number 1 seed that year. So they're good. But I'm going to tell you something. Like, if you go to any of these other regionals, I mean, just about any one of them, you're going to face, really good teams. Obviously, they might not have the bling that UCLA might have, or Georgia's. Obviously, Georgia Tech, North Carolina in our league, but. You're going to have to play your best. Anybody's going to have to play their best baseball to get past people like that, especially when you're playing them at their place. But one thing I will say is this: if you're a number 1 seed in regional, you're expected to win.
25 stolen bases.
And as the number 1 seed in any region, a lot of weight on guys' shoulders when you're expected to win.
All right, that's Coach John Sheff of Virginia Tech with some strong words there at the end. He knows what it's like to be in the position of hosting in the postseason and the pressures therein. And his team really seems to have the right mindset of, hey, we know what we're capable of, and in the modern times of rosters switching up all the time, sometimes sometimes your players take a little bit of time to get adjusted, but the health factor of this team, showing the promise that they did over those last 4 or 5 series of the season, and again putting up some big numbers. And now that, again, they're not dealing with the injury issue that they have in the past, getting some pitchers back right at the right time to go into the postseason. I believe that Virginia Tech has the mindset that they feel like they can go in there and they can win right now, which is certainly a good sign if you're a Hokies fan. Now, that game is again Friday, and it's an 8 p.m. start time out west. Here's what the rest of the bracket looks like. So up here in the upper left, if you're watching on a mobile device, I'll just kind of point it out to you. You got UCLA here, who is the #1 team of the nation, no question about it. They're going to take on St. Mary's in the other part of that bracket. In fact, as we look here, there you go. We got UCLA, St. Mary's, and then the Hokies and Cal Poly will be in the nighttime bracket, and that is your regional there. Now, the other teams we're looking at, of course, UVA is in. UVA is playing down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, as Southern Miss gets in there, and they'll be playing first. And then it's going to be UVA taking on the Conference USA champs from Jacksonville State. That is on Friday as well. And also on Friday is Liberty. And if we can go ahead and scroll down and show you that one, we will as well, because, I'm missing it. Where is Liberty? There it is, still in the bottom right. Liberty is taking on, with their 41-19 record, Liberty is going to be taking on Boston College Friday afternoon at 2, and that's going to be down in Athens, Georgia, as Georgia and Long Island will be battling in the early game there. So again, Georgia, Long Island, and Liberty, and Boston College. So a very busy Friday for baseball in the tournament. Again, double elimination in the sisters round, so even if you lose on Friday, you are not out of it by a long shot. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit of NASCAR. Of course, it's been a hard weekend for NASCAR fans as Kyle Busch passed away late last week, and the emotions were certainly hard to hide out there on the racetrack down in Charlotte, but it all came to a head after near midnight last night, and we'll talk about the Coke 600 and how NASCAR said goodbye to the Rowdy Ones right here on the Hometown Sports Huddle.
Without a trip to the College World Series, it's their 36th tournament appearance. They got it done with the win over UTSA in the American Championship. MOP of the conference tournament, Ethan Norby, a pitcher. Watch out for him, and watch out for the Tennessee Volunteers. 7 straight appearances for the first time in program history. A pretty error-free, clean team in fielding for Tennessee. It's going to be a tall task for them to get out of Chapel Hill, KP.
Guess what? They can pitch in Chapel Hill this year, and it starts with Jason DeCaro. It just seems like you want to talk about rinse and repeat. I mean, every single year, DeCaro seems to throw a good one up. Caden Glauber's the freshman of the year in the ACC. It's not just pitching, though. They can swing it, and they can swing it plenty. Owen Hull had a great offensive season, drove in 75. Jake Schaffner, 25 bags, made just 3 errors. North Carolina's a real threat to win it.
Gavin Gallagher, 12 home runs. Cooper Nicholson, 15 bombs. Chapel Hill is going to be very fun this weekend. The number 6 national seed, deep in the heart of Texas, the Texas Longhorns and head coach Jim Schlossnagle. It's the 65th appearance for the Horns, the most of any team. Dylan Volantis leading the SEC in ERA, top 5 in Division I. They will open up against the Holy Cross Crusaders out of the Patriot League. Patriot League champs, let's go. They are somewhat excited. C.J. Egri, Patriot League Player of the Year, stole home in the champ game as well. Almost like they knew they were in or something. We move on down. Who else is headed to Austin? Tarleton State Texans. Congrats, the WAC champs. Their first appearance since moving to Division I. A nice little watch party at Buffalo Wild Wings and Stephenville campus. Congratulations to the Texans. They will face the UC Santa Barbara Gauchos. Andrew Checkett's the head coach. Their 15th appearance in this event. Jackson, Florida, Big West Pitcher of the Year. Tops in Division I in earned run average. Texas didn't win the SEC, but they're a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, Texas, a couple stars in the lineup. Aiden Robbins, one of the best right-handers in the country, the pride of Yardley, PA. Go Birds. Carson Tinney right there, power-hitting catcher. And on the mound, Dylan Volantis, one of the most unique left-handed pitchers in the country, also one of the best.
No more Pennsylvania references, please. Top 8 national seed for the 10th time. 7 national seed, and we stick in the
All right, welcome back
SEC.
to the Hometown Sports Huddle again,
Alabama
everybody.
gets a
Dave
top
Walls
8
here on a
Rob
Monday
Vaughn, third
evening.
seed after
We
coming
will,
out of
again,
Maryland.
talk more baseball tomorrow. I'll
Tournament
have a
appearance,
one-on-one
Justin
with
LeBron.
Liberty baseball head coach
Leads the SEC
Bradley
in
LaCroix in his
stolen
first year
bases
at
for a top
LU.
8.
But did want to talk today as we wrap up here
take on
about the
Alabama
weekend in
State.
NASCAR that was, because
The
what
chance
an
of swagging
incredible,
off
what
the
an
home run
emotional
champs
day,
of the league.
emotional
Their
weekend
third
for everybody in
NCAA
NASCAR
appearance.
after the sudden passing of
Their
Kyle
first since
Busch on
2022.
Thursday afternoon. He was
else
only
is headed to
41 years
Tuscaloosa?
old, which I think hit a lot of the
South
NASCAR
Carolina
field and not a lot of NASCAR
The
fans
Big
super
South
hard,
Tournament
as Rowdy
champions, head coach
is no
Katie
longer with
Sweeney.
us. And so everybody was kind of paying attention to how would the garage, how would the fans, how would everybody respect and remember a driver who, let's be honest, was a little bit controversial in his time. Yes, he matured quite a bit, but certainly, he had built up a reputation of someone that was a little bit rough around the edges, I think is the nice way to say it. But I was really happy that fans were able to come on out, come see and pay their respects to Kyle. I can tell you, as I mentioned during my report on Thursday night at 11, I had a chance to interview Kyle Busch several times, when you cover NASCAR for a TV station, as you lead up to a race, you're given opportunities to be able to talk to Cup Series drivers, get their thoughts on the race, the track, what's been going on in the year. And, some drivers, love him, some don't, and that's okay. Kyle Busch was one that you had to kind of earn his respect. And what I mean by that is, if you saw any of the coverage over the weekend, Kyle Busch, he would almost test you in a way. If you came with a boilerplate question, he would give you back a 2-word answer, which is just death when you're interviewing someone. When they go, nope, or yep, and, that's all they do. I think I remember asking him once because, Kyle Busch, this is about, right after COVID. He was still racing in the Truck Series, and I said, Kyle, you've had such a legendary career, but you still are out there, most weekends of the Truck Series, and this is when he had KBM. And I was saying, what keeps you coming back to, to the track every week? He goes, I want to win. Click, and that was the end of the interview. But again, but Kyle, away from the cameras, away from that, if he respected you, he liked you, and I know the last few times I had a chance to one-on-one with him. We had some great conversations. Very, very, as fun as he was on camera, I gotta tell you, he was even funnier off of it. Just someone who really matured into a truly legendary driver and a big figure, both in the garage and with the media members as well. So the Coke 600 over the weekend was certainly a tough one to watch, but as the organization remembered Rowdy on Sunday with a tremendous memorial service with Samantha Busch, Brexton, the whole Busch family, Kurt Busch out there as well. Can't imagine what they were going through to have to do that in public like that, but I thought the way NASCAR handled it was fantastic. And then the results, which happened after our news at 11 last night, Daniel Suarez in the number 7 car is in the lead when the race gets called for rain. And you might remember, of course, that as we're going to it, I thought the audio was going to be muted on that. Well, all right. Well, it'll be a little loud, so I hope you can still hear me. But Suarez, there he is. We'll come back out there then if that's going to be that loud. But Suarez in that number 7, you might remember when Busch won his last Truck Series race. The Truck Series, Busch run in the number 7, and he is someone who was a teammate to Suarez over this last little bit of time since Suarez has come to Spire and again shared that number. And after the race, they had a chance to talk with him more about what it meant to be with Kyle Busch and why this passing hit everybody in the garage so hard. Here's Daniel Suarez.
Listen, Kyle, where I came from in Mexico, we are very family-oriented people. My mom is back there, my sisters are back there. This is the only race that I actually have my family with me. That's one of the reasons why this is my favorite weekend of the year. The Coca-Cola 600, because I always get to have my family for a week. And Kyle, he wasn't my family, but he was someone that gave me a hand when I needed it the most. And it wasn't just a hand. It was a hand of a legend. It was a hand of somebody with so much experience. So for that, I will be forever grateful. Forever grateful. Kyle is one of the few drivers out there that I never had an issue with. we always got along amazing. One time he got in trouble in Cancun, and he called me, and Samantha called me. I mean, some of you guys know what happened there. And then, you know, after the race in Mexico City, we partied together. He came to my party. Like, I just love the guy. He was an amazing person. And for me, one of my goals this weekend is for people to understand these stories of him. Because a lot of people didn't know who he was as a person. Then many people, fans, they knew him as a racing driver. But the person that is behind that fire suit, behind that helmet, that's what counts the most. You know, that family man. Every time that you talk to Kyle about Brexton, his eyes light up. You know, he was a family man. And because of that, this race is so special. You know, all the combination of these things. And I want to make sure that the focus and the most important thing about this victory is not Spire Motorsports, it's not Daniel Suarez, it's Kyle Busch, because he was very, very important piece for me to be here and for Spire Motorsports to be where it is right now.
That's Daniel Suarez, who won the Coke 600 last night, and I think it's truly telling as we wrap up the show today, just that it's not very often that at every level of a sport that you have an athlete like Kyle Busch who has affected, you know, the Truck Series, the O'Reilly Series, the Cup Series. You know, people have even been talking about when he was racing in juniors and all that stuff, and then, you know, the person that he was behind the scenes and helping people grow and being a good teammate. Yeah, you might hear about someone like that when they have the rivalries and the fights, and we've seen all of those. But for everyone, you know, top, bottom, whether they were holding a wrench, a microphone, or behind a wheel, to talk so glowingly about a man, he is someone who is definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. I would love for NASCAR to include him in this year's class. If not, he is without question going into the Hall of Fame in 2027. But Kyle Busch, certainly an emotional weekend for NASCAR, and I thought they did right with a tribute to him, and my thoughts and my prayers go out to the Busch family as they grieve. All right, that's going to do it for the Hometown Sports Huddle on this Monday. Tomorrow, when we come back again, Liberty Baseball, we'll talk with Bradley LaCroix and the Flames about their trip into the NCAA tournament. That's all for now, though. I'm Dave Walls. Thanks for watching, and have a great night, everybody. Take care.
The Yale Bulldogs.